So instead of telling you what you probably already know, which is to make a lot of art in order to find your style, I'm going to try to explain how finding your style can contribute so much more to your life than just feeling like a real artist, because I think a real artist doesn't concern themselves with finding a style. Finding a style is a very externally driven goal. Finding a style should be a result of finding yourself first. It should be a result instead of a means to an end, if that makes sense. In order to start this process of finding my style, I knew I needed to make it as easy as possible for myself. So I started painting on packing paper that I had never used, and it was a pack of 200 sheets for $25. And because they were so cheap and I sort of were meant to be crumpled and thrown away and stuffed into boxes, I felt that I could freely experiment on this packing paper without the fear of wasting money. And this material freedom felt really satisfying to me, because it helped me find and focus on a process that felt satisfying to me. I was ultimately in search of a process that didn't feel torturous, because for the longest time I thought that real art had to be something technically tight and more realistic, and I was never honest to myself about how that type of art felt to me while I was making it. It felt really torturous, and it felt like an obligation and a chore, and I hated working more than 10 hours on a painting. That was a few years ago, when I had a very narrow-minded view of what an artist was. Instead, I let my feelings and intuition guide the way. If it felt good, I followed it, and I let art be indulgent, something I hadn't done since my summers in college, which was 10 years ago, if you're wondering. It started off with these loose figurative sketches in my sketchbook, and then I felt the itch to paint bigger, because painting felt like a more expressive and involved process to me if it was on a larger piece of paper. And then after making a lot of these larger artworks, I started realizing that a lot of my artworks shared an overarching themes like emotions over realism, a nostalgic blue, a fixation on values, and most of all, the human figure. So instead of asking questions or passing judgments on myself and why I did things a certain way, I just leaned into it. I learned that in order to create fulfilling art, you don't need technical skill, but simply something to express, and the courage to express it. And this is why it is so important to love the process, because when you make these bad pieces of art, your love for the process will pick you back up and carry you through. And that will allow you to make a lot of pieces, even though they're bad. It doesn't really matter at that point, because it's not about how the pieces turned out. It's about the feeling of making them. Whether bad or good, this process almost feels like a massage, dude. Feels cathartic. And eventually, if you do it consistently, it feels like a form of maintenance instead of something you do for validation. It's like brushing your teeth every morning, and if you don't do it, it feels strange. It becomes more of a way to stay sane instead of a way to get validation. With each new painting that I did, I learned something new, like what colors I like to use, what subjects I was drawn to, what felt loose and alive to me versus what felt stale and inflexible. Over the course of these paintings, I saw subjects and styles that I repeatedly returned to versus those that were more obviously experiments. While I really love a handful of these paintings, most of them I actually feel neutral towards. Some are even undone. The ones I really hated, I crumpled up never to be seen again. I realized that bad art, which is subjective by the way, was not only necessary to find my style, but also to learn deeply about myself. I unlocked this knowledge by asking why. Why is this bad art to me? Why did I love that piece versus this one? Why am I drawn to these subjects? And doing some mental excavation to uncover the answers. And those answers will reveal a lot about yourself. I try to remember that a visual style is not permanent, nor is it really important, especially if I'm just creating for my own fulfillment. I realize that style does not have to be limited to just one medium either. When I was feeling controlling around what kind of art I thought I should make, back when I had a more narrow-minded view about what art making is and what an artist is, a close friend gave me some insight that I still think about often. My identity isn't tied to the medium. I'm more focused on how I feel doing it, not what it is I'm making. So when I see it that way, I can do whatever I want. We can express that creativity in anything we're interested in, and they're all really connected and can unlock different things for ourselves. Painting is definitely a creative outlet for me, but so is writing this essay and making this video. Things I used to deny in myself in fear of losing focus on finding an art style. What's important is not finding an art style, but the process of creating a lot of artwork, whether it is just one medium or several. My body of work reveals how my visual DNA tangibly presents itself. It's interesting to think how art is as intertwined into me as my own pulse. And I should be able to express myself in all ways as easily as I exhale air. The style I have right now resonates with me on a visceral level, but I also know that I could explore another style tomorrow, which would bring something completely different about myself to light. This journey of self-exploration is endlessly more fascinating and fulfilling to me than simply finding an art style. Imagine biting into a plum at the height of summer. Organic, in season, from the farmer's market, heavy with juice. Imagine popping its firm skin, the sweet juices washing over all corners of your mouth and submerging your taste buds. That's how it feels like to create my art now. It feels very full and fulfilling. Full of me, my life, experiences, inspirations, my realizations. Big, juicy brushstrokes that feel like biting into a cold, juicy plum on a hot day. I don't feel this way because other people give me validation for my art. If you haven't noticed, the process of finding your style is less like marketing and advertising and a lot more like journaling. It is a very introspective process that involves little to no input from anyone else except you. I look at my art now and I feel tenderness towards it. Hi, baby. Like it's traveled with me my whole life to get to this point. My art has observed something of myself that I have yet to see, but is waiting to teach me. I was able to connect with something real inside of me. Something that I can't necessarily explain, but I can create.